Welcome back to Straight Facts by Dinar Investor.
Iraqi Prime Minister Abdul Mahdi says he will resign by Arwad Ayman, Sarah El Sergani and Mohammed Tawfiq. CNN updated 10 a.m. ET, Friday, November 29, 2019 Baghdad, Iraq. CNN. Iraqi Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi will resign after nearly 2 months of anti-government protests, according to a statement from his office. People set off fireworks as they celebrated his resignation in Baghdad's Tahrir Square, after anti-government protests, which began on October 1, swept through the country against alleged government corruption and Iranian involvement in the country's affairs. In the statement, Abdul Mahdi said he would submit a resignation request to Parliament to consider its options. With the knowledge that those near and far are aware that I had already made this decision known, he called on Iraq's government to act in the interests of Iraq, to preserve the blood of its people, and to avoid slipping into a cycle of violence, chaos and devastation. Abdul Mahdi said his resignation was in response to the Friday sermon of Iraq's top Shiite cleric, Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, who referenced the failure of respective agencies to handle developments over the past 2 months. Abdul Mahdi had initially agreed to resign on October 31 on the condition that his successor was agreed to replace him. Days of violence and news comes after the Iranian consulate in the southern city of Najaf was attacked on Wednesday. Mahdi ordered an investigation on Thursday into the deaths of at least 31 people. More than 1,000 people were injured over 3 days of demonstrations across Iraq from November 26 to November 28, the country's Independent High Commission for Human Rights said Thursday. In total, around 380 people have been killed and 17,745 injured in Iraq since the protests began, according to Ali al-Bayadi, a member of the Independent High Commission for Human Rights of Iraq. Protesters have demanded the government step down and hold early elections under direct supervision of the United Nations, activists told CNN. Many Iraqis blame the current political parties in power for their economic hardship. Officials have imposed curfews, internet blackouts, and deployed lethal force in attempts to quash the protests. The government said it only shoots when attacked, but demonstrators have disputed that. Iraqi Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi submits resignation amid protests by Post Wires. November 29, 2019.
Adil Abdul Mahdi.
Iraqi Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi said on Friday he would offer his resignation to Parliament to allow lawmakers to choose a new government, in a move that follows weeks of violent anti-government protests. Abdul Mahdi's decision came in response to a call for a change of leadership on Friday by Iraq's top Shiite Muslim cleric Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, his office said in a statement. In response to this call, and in order to facilitate it as quickly as possible, I will present to Parliament a demand to accept my resignation from the leadership of the current government, said the statement, signed by Abdul Mahdi. The statement did not specify when he would tender his resignation. Parliament is due to convene on Sunday. The announcement came after weeks of anti-government unrest in which security forces have killed around 400 mostly peaceful demonstrators and the country has careered towards a serious escalation of violence. Iraqi Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi says will resign amid deadly protests. The PM announced his intention to step down live on television the day after more than 40 protesters were killed in clashes with security forces.
Iraqi Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi Burhanoz Bilici AP.
November 29, 2019. 7:07 a.m. Mountain Standard Time by Sephora Smith. Iraq's embattled prime minister said Friday he would submit his resignation following weeks of deadly anti-government protests, making him the second Mideast leader forced to step down after demonstrations in recent weeks. Adil Abdul Mahdi announced his intention to resign Friday live on Iraqi television, the day after more than 40 protesters were killed in clashes with security forces. Lebanon's Prime Minister Saad Hariri announced last month that he was handing in his resignation to the president after he hit a dead end amid nationwide protests.